His name is Eduardo Suzuki.
Mr. Eduardo Suzuki, we received your letter, and we will of course help provide performance shoes to the Brazil market, and we will work with individuals within the Brazil market in any way we can to make sure our best performance shoes can be found on any shelf in any store. So thank you very much for your letter.
Muito bem, meu companheiro. Agora eu vou entrevistar duas pessoas muito importantes, cara, quando o assunto é desenvolvimento e principalmente o planejamento das marcas, dos calçados da marca Mizuno. Eu vou entrevistar o James Aoe, que é o planner, o cara que planeja tudo em relação aos lançamentos em todos os mercados, não só no japonês, mas no mercado mundial. E também vou entrevistar a Susan Suzuki, que é a gerente geral de calçados de trail. Então você vai saber um pouquinho sobre os planos da Mizuno para o mercado. Eu vou perguntar algumas coisas bem casca-grossa para eles, vou perguntar por que a Mizuno mantém o tradicionalismo, não investe em novas tecnologias. Vou fazer algumas perguntas bem cascudas. E vou querer saber também por que a gente perdeu as linhas de trail running no Brasil e tentar entender o porquê e como funciona esse business de trade de calçado para o Brasil. Se você quiser saber, você tem que assistir essa entrevista que começa agora. Fica ligado.
First of all, I'd like to know, how do you plan new collections? So are you looking for new technologies, and how do you plan the future for the brand?
We always look into the user needs and how we can accommodate those user needs while staying true to our own brand DNA. And our brand DNA has always been to deliver performance-based products based on performance-based technology. And we feel that we have a very strong history in that background, coming from performance sports at the top level of providing Olympic athletes with high-level performance equipment in all different sports. And when we start talking about running, we look at how do we deliver the performance experience to the everyday runner. And what is the everyday runner looking that is correlated to performance runners. And one area that our own technology has a strong basis on is running efficiency. And that can be delivered through our main technology, the wave plate, because it provides not only cushion, but also a responsive feel which guides the foot to its next step. And what that allows us to do is provide not only a very soft cushion bed to take in the impact from running, but also guide the foot forward, which allows the runner to use less energy to pull their leg forward into the next step. And right now what we saw in the past few years is there was a minimalist movement where people thought that no shoes was the best, and then people started to realize that that was not the way to go, and now they've gone to the cushion. And we feel that the next step could be towards the middle of that, of how a runner can experience not only a cushion feel, but a nice supportive feel towards their next step. And so we always try to look at what runners are really looking for in their shoes and what they're looking for in their running experience. And that is the basis of all the products that we start to deliver, whether that's one product or a series of products that make up a line.
Of course, you pass by a lot of tendencies during the past few years. There was a time where the minimal shoes were really trendy.
Sure.
Nowadays you don't see them a lot in the stores. People are starting to think about the maximalism, like the thick midsoles. And during the whole time, you had the minimum shoes. I remember the minimum shoes for the Mizuno universe was a big hit in this area, in the minimum shoes. You never jumped in the maximalist. You never did this maximalist shoe.
Sure.
This is something that you don't believe, or maybe you're waiting for more resources to build a shoe in this area?
We look at these past few years as quite extreme moments in the running history. It all started with the minimalistic movement, I think with the launch of the book Born to Run, there was a strong push where everybody thought the least amount of shoes you have, the better, because it makes you running more naturally. And that's a very strong extreme to go to, because it's generalizing all runners into one field. And so you saw, if you think of a pendulum, we went towards this extreme minimalistic movement, and then we saw a lot of people getting injured and hurt, and right away people started to get taken away from that. And I think it's a natural reaction that when one thing doesn't work, people look at the exact opposite as the answer. And so you saw going from least amount of shoes to now a very large amount of shoes under your foot, which in essence nullifies everything that's going on underneath your foot. It's not a question of taking a lot of amount of shoes from underneath you or putting a lot underneath your foot. It's about providing an overall running experience that is unique to our brand. And so that is a strong reason as to why we, at this point, have not come out with a shoe that has a midsole thickness that we've seen in other brands that have come out. And also I think the movement of going to a maximalistic cushioned trend gave a lot of new brands a new field to participate in. And when you're a new brand coming into the running market, if you have a very extreme story, runners will be very interested in that, because many runners are always looking for a new story, something new that they can show their friends and say, this is a new thing coming out. And when you have a history like us, where we've been in this running market for such a long time, I think and we feel that runners in itself are not looking at brands such as Mizuno and other large brands to be following the trend, but to have a set course that has been placed over the years. And while we'll provide interesting products like the Wave Universe, as you mentioned, we always like to stick to our core principles, which is, again, the running efficiency. And whether that is a large amount of cushion or a minimal amount of cushion, will always be determined about how we interpret the running market and not what others are trying to do. So you won't see from Mizuno a strong push from here on forward for a shoe that is very bulky underneath the foot. And you won't see a shoe that will come out that's very paper thin, like you've seen in the minimalistic shoes. We'll always try to stick to our principles regarding how we develop the shoes.
When you look to the market, the running shoe market, you see that the brands are trying all types of different tissues, and the knit is very popular now. You see the knit in a lot of brands bringing the knit to their models, and still Mizuno keeps doing something really traditional. If you look at the models like 5 or 6 years ago, they change, but they change like it's not a big change.
Yes.
You don't see a big change in this. For one side, if you look to the people which is where they were wearing the Mizunos, it's really good, because you stick to these guys, and these guys you're faithful to them. But don't you think you can miss new runners? Maybe these new runners that are just becoming a runner now.
I think venturing to new, different materials to represent our shoes in a different way is something that we've always looked into, and we've tried to incorporate into for certain models. But one thing we have to be careful of, the example that you brought up, knit shoes, and how they look. There's a certain persona behind a knit shoe that can be already correlated to certain brands. So that when a shoe that is not that certain brand comes out with a knit shoe, it automatically becomes a copy of that brand. So, and also coming from a performance-based background, it's very difficult for us to come out with a product that is relatively fashion-esque and to communicate that as a performance-based product. So a lot of the brands you see that are coming out with a knit they will come out with a knit to transcend the barrier that is between fashion and running, so that people who are wearing the shoes can wear it for running, can wear it for casual, and it will be both accepted in both fields. This is a very interesting place to be as a brand, and while Mizuno doesn't consider itself to be unfashionable, we feel that we want to stick to our performance-based DNA. Now, if we can develop a certain material that can provide a fit and feel of a knit upper while providing a performance level, we will of course incorporate that material. But one thing we don't want to do is to follow the trend, which would be to come out with a product 2 years after someone else has already done it, and a few years down the line, people look back and say, well, what is really Mizuno? You came out with all these products that look like somebody else's 2 years after them, and now we don't really know what you are. So instead of going out and chasing what others are doing, we feel that we need to stick to what we feel is the core of our brand and incorporate things that will help develop that brand image, but not necessarily make us look like somebody else.
You talked about DNA. The DNA of Mizuno is connected to the pivots, to the wave plate. The wave plate is becoming smaller and smaller. Is there a reason for that?
That's an interesting point. One of the points of making fluctuating the size of the weight plate comes back to what is going on in the running market. In the past, running shoes were essentially a bit harder in feel than they were in previous years. So before the minimalistic movement came, running shoes were relatively slightly hard feeling. But then the minimalistic movement came, they wanted an extremely hard shoe. That didn't work. Now we come out with an extremely cushioned shoe. And what you're seeing with a lot of the brands is that such brands that do not come out with extreme cushioned shoes will come out with shoes that provide slightly more cushion than they have provided in the past. And what we found with our wave plate is that it's not really about how much or how large the wave plate is. It's about how we can provide a new experience for the runner. And then by playing with the size of the wave plate, we can still provide a optimal amount of response and cushion in the heel, which is the initial point of pressure upon impact with the ground. While the forefoot, we want to provide a slightly softer and cushion ride going forward. So an aspect of the wave plate, it was longer because we provided a wave plate into the forefoot to provide a snappier toe off. But what we find now is that runners like a more softer, comfortable feel on their toe off, which has brought us to the conclusion that making the wave plate slightly smaller and providing a cushioned forefoot feel is more optimal for the current runner's needs. So that is an aspect of taking in what the running market is currently requesting and then incorporating into our brand without really losing what our brand DNA is.
Just let me ask you about the midsole material, the euphoric. It became the euphoric X. Now it's more cushiony. So you think this is a reflex of the market?
I think it has to do with two things. One is absolutely what the running and market is requesting. They want shoes that feel comfortable not only running, but the second you put them on your feet. The other thing is, as a brand, we are always looking to develop new materials, new ways of expressing the Mizuno running experience. And one area that we thought we could really improve our products on was providing not only a cushion feel, but a nice responsive feel that leads the runner forward. And what we found was that if we can provide a softer impact upon landing, that in response can lead to a better response from the wave plate and lead the runner forward. So the Euphoric X is, of course, a cushioned material, which helps the performance of the wave plate, but also accommodates to what the running market is requesting from us.
So I would like to ask you also about the synchro. I see the synchro as a big changing point in Mizuno, because we see a different structure. We don't see the pivots plate, we don't see the wave plate. It's a different cushioning, it's a different material. So what's the next step for the synchro? What do you plan for the future?
Well, the synchro, the thought behind that series is to provide something new to the Mizuno DNA. We've spoke about a responsive ride from the wave plate, but we do understand that there is a new market of runners that are looking for something that is, again, not only for running, but can be fashionably worn with jeans and comfortable clothing as well. And with the synchro, we wanted to provide a shoe that provides not only a cushion ride, but also a supportive ride. So what we've done with that shoe is we've provided the cushioning that many of the running markets have requested for, but added the performance base of placing a harder material on top to provide guidance on an individual's run. So what guidance does is when you land on your heel, that hard piece on the top will essentially keep your foot from overpronating or underpronating and guide you towards your toe off in a more optimal path than if that were not in place. So the future for synchro is to provide that cushion floating ride while also providing a certain amount of guidance to make sure the individual doesn't harm themselves while running.
Right. There's some tendencies in the market that saying it's known. It's like studies that say that normally a neutral shoe would attend to every runner. That the overpronation is something normal. Everybody can overpronation and don't be worried about it. And the stability shoes, that the shoes they are made for overpronators, are something that is unnecessary. These are studies, but they are not like big studies. There's nothing that is really. What's your view about it?
I would say that we agree that overpronating or pronating is a natural effect. You land on the outside of your heel and then you push off with your big toe. So essentially your foot is pronating as you run, and it's a natural movement. How much you pronate is based on the individual. Some people overpronate and then never have problems running. Some people underpronate and have problems. So to say an individual needs a certain kind of shoe is very hard to say without speaking to that runner very closely. So I think as a running market, there's always going to be a need for not only neutral shoes, but stability shoes, support shoes, guidance shoes, and a very different kind of level. Because runners will have certain characteristics, and those characteristics will change over the years. For instance, when someone comes into the running market for the first time, their legs are not built for running. So if they were to go for a very long run, towards the end of their run, their legs would get tired and their ankles and knees will start to do things that usually do not happen. And that's where you see a lot of sudden overpronation, which can be harmful to your joints. Mm-hmm. And so those kind of runners, we would always recommend that they try a support shoe, because if they are going to run a marathon or a very long distance, towards the end they're going to want to have this extra support to keep them safe. If they're an avid runner, we would say maybe a neutral shoe can do most of what they need to do. But I think if a experienced runner then suddenly becomes injured, that can change how they run as well. So I think every time you buy new shoes, you have to look at what happened when you're in your previous time in your running shoes. Did you get injured? Did you have any issues? And based on that, you should go and try different kinds of shoes. So I'm a strong believer that once you try on one shoe and it works, you shouldn't always buy the same shoe all the time. I also don't believe in going online and just buying shoes, because your body changes as you age, as you run more, as you run less. To say that neutral shoes will help everybody I think is incorrect to a certain point. I think you really, as a runner, every individual is different. So I strongly insist that they go to the stores and talk to the staff, talk to people like myself and Susan to help guide them to find a shoe that is best for them at that time and not a shoe that is the best for them for the rest of their life. So that's why I think there's a need for different kinds of shoes.
I said it was the last one, but I don't.
Sure. No problem.
How do you see the Mizuno product lines in 10 years?
I think you'll see shoes that are still based on our core principles. I think Wave is our DNA. So I think you will see the Wave technology or the Wave experience, we'll say, expressed in different ways. I think right now people will look at the Wave technology as just a P-Bax plate in the heel, but I think that can be stretched to mean many different things. And hopefully in 10 years' time, when people think of or hear about the Mizuno Wave, it's not just a plastic plate, but a running experience that is very original to Mizuno itself and unlike any other brand.
There's a YouTuber in Brazil.
Okay?
He has a channel like mine,
Okay.
and he made a joke. He writing a letter to Mr. Mizuno, asking him to send more performance shoes to Brazil, because in Brazil we just have the creation, the prophecy, and the rider.
Sure.
So
They know the most.
yeah,
about
you know
the
that. So
situation.
we don't have the performance shoes like the Hitogami used to be in Brazil. Now we don't have it anymore. And then he wrote this letter to Mr. Mizuno asking please to send the performance shoes to Brazil. And I'm supposed to deliver the letter. All right. His name is Eduardo Suzuki.
Mr. Eduardo Suzuki, we received your letter, and we'll of course help provide performance shoes to the Brazil market, and we will work with individuals within the Brazil market in any way we can to make sure our best performance shoes can be found on any shelf in any store. So thank you very much for your letter.